Bonjour, bienvenue à la classe du français. On commence aujourd'hui avec le chapitre 1, les bonnes manières. Hi, so today we're going to be starting with the very first chapter, good manners. So we're talking about greetings and how people greet one another in French. So one of the most important things to keep in mind when you're speaking in French is your formality. Are you being formal or are you going to be more informal? So there are two different ways of speaking, depending to whom you are speaking. You can use vous, or you can use tu. Your vous is going to be more formal, and your tu is going to be more informal. So let's listen to some examples of that. First, I'm going to start out, with a greeting. Bonjour. But if I'm being formal, I'm going to be adding bonjour madame, bonjour monsieur, bonjour mademoiselle. I'm going to use my bonjour, but I'm also going to greet them with a title. If I know their last name, I might include that too. Bonjour Madame Dupont, right? If I'm using tu with just a friend, I'm going to say something like salut. And of course, there's many different other things that you can add on to that. But the difference you're going to hear most often is your bonjour versus your salut. One is formal, one is informal. So let's talk about some questions that you'll commonly get at the beginning of a conversation, right? If I'm being formal, someone might say je m'appelle, right? And I might say je m'appelle Mélanie Kincaid. Et vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? Did you hear it? Et vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? 3 times I give an indication that I'm being formal. Et vous, and you? Comment vous appelez-vous? So I know that that person is being formal with me. Now that isn't going to change my response when they ask me what my name is. I'm still going to say, je m'appelle Mélanie Kincaid, right? But the question, if you want to ask that question in a more formal setting, you want to use the more formal question. Comment vous appelez-vous? If I'm being informal, because it's just someone, like in my class, for example, I might use a more informal. So instead of et vous, I'm going to use et toi, and that's going to go with my tu. Comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? Right, you'll hear that tu at the end, as opposed to comment vous appelez-vous? So you can hear the difference between the formal and the informal. You'll want to practice that because it depends on your situation. Most often, especially if you're traveling around, you're going to want to start with vous right away. So that's asking, what is your name? So if I want to ask, how are you doing? Comment allez-vous? Comment allez-vous? Again, you're hearing that more formal vous. And that is opposed to salut, ça va? Salut, ça va? Ça va is a short, more informal way of asking someone how they are. How can you respond? Either way, there's many ways to respond, right? So if someone says, comment allez-vous? I can say, très bien, merci. Et vous? I'm going to throw the question back to them and ask them how they are doing because that's polite conversation in French. Right? Or they can say salut, ça va? And I can say oui, très bien. Or I can say oui, ça va bien. Or I could say mal if I'm having a bad day. I can say pas mal, which is not great, not bad. And then of course I want to use my merci because I'm thanking them for being concerned about how I'm doing that day. So again, if we want to have a more formal conversation, I might say bonjour madame. And then I might ask them, comment vous appelez-vous? Right? They're going to tell me their name. Je m'appelle Madame Dupont. Et vous? Right? She's going to ask me, and then I'm going to say, ah oui, je m'appelle Mélanie Kincaid. Then I might ask them, comment allez-vous? How are you? And she might say, très bien, merci. Et vous? And throw the question back to me. And I say, ah, très bien, merci aussi. And that would be the start of our conversation. Hopefully it would go on much longer. Now if we're talking about a friend, again we have the salut, ça va? Ça ça va bien, merci. Et toi? So we have our toi. That's going to go with our tu. We could say ça peut aller, moyen. Our book gives a lot of other ones that you could say as a young person, how the young people talk. So that might be of interest to you to look at that. Now, if you're talking to someone and they say something and you're not sure what they say, which will happen when you're first learning French, you might say, comment? Je ne comprends pas. Répétez s'il vous plaît. I'm asking them to répéter. That A is indicating the vous, which we will talk about in subsequent lessons. And then the s'il vous plaît, you're going to hear that vous again. And that would be in contrast to répète s'il te plaît. S'il te plaît, that tu is telling me I'm using tu. And then they would, of course, answer my question whenever I said je ne comprends pas, right? I don't understand. And then after I finally get it, I'd say, ah, je comprends, right? I would let them know, oh, okay, I understand, je comprends. Then again, if we bump into someone, which may happen if we're in a public place, right? And I might say, oh, pardon, excusez-moi, right? That et, again, that we heard in like répéter, excusez, that's going to be an ending that goes with our vous. And like I said in subsequent lessons, we'll study that. But be aware of that. Then how am I going to say goodbye? Many ways. We could just say au revoir, right? Sometimes our friends will just say ciao, wesh, à plus tard, à bientôt, à la prochaine. So there's many different ways to say goodbye. So let's just look at a couple examples and see if you can hear the difference between the vous and the tu, right? So listen to these examples, see if you can figure out which one it is before I tell you the answer. So first one, comment vous appelez-vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? Is this a vous or a tu? Is this formal or informal? Comment vous appelez-vous? Did you hear it? The vous, right? So it's going to be more formal. Et toi? Et toi? Informal, right? Our toi goes with tu. Répète s'il te plaît. Répète s'il te plaît. That's going to go with our informal, right? That s'il te plaît. We heard that in there. Comment vas-tu? Comment vas-tu? Informal, right? You heard the tu at the end. Comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? Again, the informal, right? The t'appelles-tu. How about this one? Bonjour, monsieur. Bonjour, monsieur. Right? I'm being more formal. I usually don't talk to my friends and say, hello, sir. Perhaps in jest. How about this one? Et vous? Et vous? Right, that one's pretty easy. Gives it away. You're saying the vous, formal. How about the greeting salut? Salut. Right, I'm being more informal. I'm using a tu form. Répétez s'il vous plaît. Répétez s'il vous plaît. I'm being more formal. Vous. Last one. Comment allez-vous? Comment allez-vous? Did you get it? Formal. Vous. Vous may be a little bit easier because often you use the vous in the phrase. So in this chapter and this lesson, you really want to look at les bonnes manières. You want to go through your ebook. You want to really listen to these phrases. And you want to practice them. The more that you practice them, the more comfortable you'll become, and the more you'll notice what letters are left out, which ones are not pronounced, which ones are pronounced, which ones are we kind of shoving together when we pronounce them. And all of that practice is going to help you to become more comfortable and understand more easily. And then of course you're going to go onto the Connect website. You should see the launcher on your Buzz platform there, and you're going to go in and you're going to look at this chapter 1, lesson 1, and you're going to want to do those activities, and hopefully they will help you to distinguish the difference between the vous and the tu. À la prochaine!